Welcome to the Believe in Your Office podcast, sponsored by Boomerang and Common Sense Office Furniture, the podcast where we explore what makes workplaces work. Every episode features candid conversations with leaders, business professionals, and workplace experts who've been in the trenches. They share the real stories, the wins, the failures, and the lessons learned about culture, teamwork, and leadership that actually matter. Let's get into it. Nick, welcome to the Believe in Your Office podcast. How you doing?
Good. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely, man. So tell us a little bit about yourself.
You started off well. My name's Nick. I've worked for Common Sense, going on 10 years this year. Been involved my whole life, basically, since I was an early teenager. Started, in the warehouse during my summers when I was about 13 years old. So I'll be 33 this year, so I'd be about 20 years around the business. My dad started it when I was about 4 years old, so it's always been a part of my life. It's always, been around me. I've always been around office furniture. And that's, just a quick background about me. I'm born and raised in Florida. Fun fact, giant Patriots fan. Not sure if Craig said that, but that's, part of his identity as well. So right now are good times. We've been through a lot the past couple of years, but we're back.
Yeah, I have family that's actually in Boston, and we have an ongoing text because I'm an Eagles fan, or at least a Philly fan, and we have some banter. So yeah, you guys doing pretty well this year. So that's cool. What about office furniture that attracts you? Because let's be honest, you could do anything in the world. You could do anything. You could be anything. You have a lot of access, especially in Orlando. But like, what makes it about office furniture that allows you the ability to just stay connected and be a part of the business?
I think the original aspect was just the draw for my dad. My dad worked 24/7 growing up, so I was just always around it. It always, found its way into my life per se. And then, the classic father-son syndrome, I was like, I'll never do what my dad does, growing up. Went and got a finance degree. I was like, okay, found my own calling. That didn't work out. And, my father had me in the warehouse 3 weeks after I graduated college. And then 10 years later, I'm here. I would say what I've learned the most since switching over to sales that has allowed me to enjoy this industry is the personal connections. You kind of think of office furniture as just furniture, which in reality it is, but the people you meet through that and, the industries that you go through, it's from, you do zoos to corporate offices to somebody's home office. I mean, you just see everything. And even though it's kind of, just this static, furniture industry, the people you meet and the industries that you get involved in through meeting those people is awesome. That's definitely my favorite part.
So let's talk about that a little bit more. What is your sales approach and your strategies and tactics? And what is your philosophy about sales?
I think, I've never been one to push stuff. I've always come across people that if you push things that they kind of push themselves away from you. So I've always tried to get to know the person first and building that mutual connection on things that don't have anything to do with office furniture, right? Everybody has their own personality traits. And I think if you can grow that personal bond on that level first and they relate to you, then you grow trust with them. You can't, if they tell you, something they're into cars or something and you're not into cars, you can't just agree with that, right? You have to dig deep. You have to find what you and that person share, because there's always something you come across where you can build that connection and that trust. And I think that has been one of my biggest keys to success.
So let's go from the top to from the bottom to the top, or to the top to the bottom. Top level sales, bottom funnel. So let's start from the top funnel, and then let's work our way down bottom funnel, right? So on a typical engagement, right? Let's just say how do you usually meet people in order to be interested in potential sales?
A lot of it, surprisingly enough, is word of mouth or call-ins or existing customers. That I would say most of mine comes from word of mouth. I don't, do a lot of networking. That's something that, I'm trying to get better in. That was never a strong suit of mine. It's kind of ironic because I'm not a huge social life person and I'm in a sales position, which usually those go hand in hand. But I would say a lot of it is, word of mouth. I value my reputation as a person. I think that has grown my business, my portfolio, whatever you want to call it, exponentially, because I value the customer more than I value, going out and doing those networking nights and, I found myself not fitting in, and I've realized that if I'm not comfortable, I'm not going to come across genuine. So I've kind of pulled myself back. 3 years ago when I first started, I was trying to get into the networking. I was trying to do the social things, and I just knew it wasn't me. So I've really leaned into just building these personal relationships with these people where they can trust me. So then, word of mouth is the best advertising you can get. I use it all the time. Oh, who did the fence at your house? Use this guy. They don't call anybody because they trust your word. So I use that over anything.
So that's amazing. And that's really cool that you've been able to identify that. So I agree. The networking aspect is super stressful and anxiety driven. Like I remember doing it myself. And I just remember I had to like take a shot of tequila before I even walked in the room because of just like how stressful it can be
It
and
is.
navigating these rooms. But it's amazing that you're on the side of genuine communication. So like, let's go through a customer base. Let's just say a customer signs up right now and they're like, "Hey, we have a 20,000 square foot office that needs XYZ." Talk to me about how you cultivate that relationship and grow it into an additional sale.
Well, the first thing I want to always do is try to meet face to face, even if it's virtually or in person. I think you learn a lot more about somebody that way. You learn what they like really quickly. I think face to face, even phone calls, right? You can learn, 50 emails worth in 5 minutes per se.
Hmm.
You can accomplish a lot faster. And, I think the biggest thing that allows me to, cultivate these relationships, like you said, is just the service part, right? So I know I'm not strong in the networking industry. I know that's not my strong suit. Like you said, it's very, it's a tough environment out there. And that's just what I realized wasn't for me. So I've kind of transitioned all my focus into my customer service aspect. So, I might not be out at, 9 o'clock at the bars with you talking office furniture, but I'll make sure I'm responding to your emails within 10 minutes, no matter if I'm off that day. So
Mm.
it's just, that's where I try to lean my leverage into is big time into the customer service part, rather than the networking part.
So, what does customer service look like to you?
And like I said, it's just being available. It's being available. It's being honest. A lot of salespeople always get referred to as used car salesmen, and we all have come across a used car salesman that has been sketchy per se. I think you want to take the complete opposite approach to that. If you make a mistake, it's okay to make a mistake. You just got to be honest. I've made plenty of them, right? I don't think I've lost a customer because of the mistake. I've just been honest saying, I did X, Y, and Z, and if you come to them with a solution to the problem that you created, it's usually going to work out 95% of the time. If you just create the problem and don't have any solutions, then you're going to lose the customer, right? So we've all ordered the wrong color desk before. It happens. It sucks in the moment, but you tell them, hey, this is on me. I've already ordered your replacement. No need to worry. Sit in that desk for 2 weeks, and then we'll swap it out. Don't charge you. It's on me. I'll eat the bill. And I think that goes a long way with people, is building that trust and that honest and open communication. People can tell me, and that's what I always say. Like, just be honest with me. If you hate the furniture that I laid out, it's okay, right? We can transition to this. I just want you to be honest with me, because I don't want to waste your time or my time on things that nobody likes.
Yeah, for sure. So, like now you have the customer service angle, which I think is great. But let's dive a little bit deeper into the referral aspect because sure, you could provide really good customer service, right? But how many people realistically, maybe more than I may think, but how many people realistically are like, well, I'm changing my office and I need to be able to, oh my gosh, Nick from Common Sense, right? I'm thinking about them. That's most times that can happen for sure. But I would probably say it it could happen more, right? So
Yeah.
how do you get people to think about you outside of just the good customer service? How do you get people to refer you without without inserting like with inserting yourself? So how do you make that happen?
Yeah. So, even though I say I'm not strong in networking, I still do build those personal relationships with important people, right? You got to build those relationships with the correct people. If you're at a networking event, that's great. If you're meeting the wrong people, it's gonna go nowhere, right? So I'm still, very communicative with brokers, with building lease management teams. That's where I've again, kind of realize where I, falter at and how I need to make up for it by building those connections with those people, right? I need to build the connections with the correct people that will use word of mouth. You're right. Not, how often do people talk about office furniture? You know, sometimes we get lucky, we get a Google, call in, and it turns into this great thing. I'm not going to obviously name drop any customers, but we've had people call in for one desk and it's turned into, me doing their third building now. So it's just, some of it is right time, right place. It's luck per se, but there's definitely a strategy to involving yourself within those brokers and those building lease management teams. If you
So
can,
good.
go ahead. If you can leverage yourself and show them that you're capable of doing a job and getting them out of a pinch, very often is a huge thing for them.
Yeah. So let's we're going to continue diving into that because I want to get that like what are the things that you do, right? So you use that leverage, you communicate with the client. How do you identify, or like how do you get the broker? Because the brokers most likely are like consistently getting pinged. Everybody's getting pinged in order to make sure that they're that they are top of mind, right? Same in my industry as well. Like people are constantly like, "Oh, do you need marketing, marketing?" And
Yeah.
it's like, listen, dude, like go away. You're annoying, right?
Yeah.
What do you find is that balance of like annoying but also helpfulness? Is there something that you found that you do? And I'll kind of continue while you're thinking. I'll continue talking. Like for example, I've sent books out to people, right? What is it that you've done that kind of makes sure that you're always top of mind with these brokers and with these other power partners that you guys have?
So, it is, I still tread that line. I'm only in my third year, so I'm still new to this, right? So I still tread that line of what's annoying versus what's customer service. It's hard. You don't want to ping them every week. Then you come across desperate, but you also don't want to ignore them for a month and a half because then you come across like you don't care. So finding that threshold is still, to me, is still hard, right? I try to, stay relevant in their minds every couple weeks, and if they ignore me for 3 or 4 follow-up emails, then I'll just be like, hey, is this project long and gone? That's fine. I don't want to keep bothering you. It won't hurt my feelings per se. There's nothing personal. Just let me know if I'm annoying you, right? And I've had actually a customer that I'm going to meet this week ignored me for a few months, and I was like, hey, this is my last follow-up. I grateful to have worked with you. I don't want to keep annoying you every 2 or 3 weeks. Hope everything's good. And they were like, hey, this just, thanks for all your annoying emails per se, because we've totally put this on the back burner. Now we got to get something done. Can I come in this week? So it really is walking that fine line of, and it's a hard line to judge because some people want that customer service where you're like emailing them every day, checking in, order updates, and then you have other people who are like, "Hey, just tell me when the furniture is going to be here. I don't care about anything. I want it out of my hands." So it really is, it's person based, and you definitely come across both personalities.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I'd be curious to see like do you feel like 2 weeks is a good timeline to check in with people? And like how do you keep track of the lead quality, right? So for example, you have a lead that does that is cold, warm, hot. Like how do you identify what are some triggers within your own metrics that say, you know, what something is, what something isn't?
Yeah, so actually, Josh transferred us over to the program in our industry called Core, which has what we call a CRM that keeps track of all our leads. And that's been, really helpful in that sense. We used to have, kind of an old, outdated Excel sheet that we followed. Now it's kind of more automated, and you can, you have more substance to these leads. As far as, hot, cold, warm, however you want to describe it, I think that after some time in the industry, you can kind of read a situation very well. Me personally, I'll like label it, like 1 2 3 per se. Like a one is like, okay, I know this person needs something quickly. I know they need it done. Like I have to get with our internal team to get this done. This is pushed to the top of the list. Three is kind of like, okay, somebody sat on this furniture bid for 3 months now. I've had no response. I'll follow up, maybe once a month, just to, still be like, hey, I'm here, but not be like, hey, I'm pushing you away by coming across as spam, right? So I think that's how I internally label it. I think really the internal program with Core has allowed me to keep track of a lot of stuff.
Yeah. If you were to identify a new lead, like a company that you've always wanted to work with, right? Let's just say like a dream client.
Hmm.
If you were to kind of break down how you would get them as a client, do you think what would you do without knowing anyone? You just
Hmm.
kind of go after it. What are some tactics and strategies that you think would make sense?
So the first thing is, right, like I said earlier, I'll try to meet face to face.
Yeah.
After
How do you
that,
get the meeting? Because like, hey man, I don't care about you, right? You're
yeah,
Nick. Well, screw you.
yeah. So okay, so how do I initiate that meeting? Got it. Um, that's hard because, like you said, we're also, for us, we are, a smaller dog in this fight, right? We're not the Herman Millers of the world where everybody knows, even if you don't know, excuse me, office furniture, you know what a Herman Miller Aeron chair is, right? Like, you've come across it in your lifetime. Everybody knows that chair. Everybody knows that name. We're not that. So my angle to it would just trying it's kind of like cold calling. You got to show up. You got to try and find out which avenue you can, which person you can get to, because you're not always going to be able to reach the CEO, the CFO. You're not going to always be able to reach that person that's at the top as, chain of command that's going to make these decisions. Maybe you can get a lunch with their assistant, right? Maybe you could just email their assistant saying, "Hey, I know you guys have a furniture bid. Here's our background. I think, using the leverage of, hey, we're a small guy, but we've been here almost 30 years is a big ordeal. We have the backing to prove it. We don't have something that's, a year old and we're only doing $1 million a year. They're going to be like, okay, well, this is $1 million job. How are you going to even be able to handle it? It's like, okay, yeah, you are a small business, but once you say, hey, this is who I work with on a constant basis, there's big names out there. Again, I'm not going to name drop our clients, but there's big names out there that allow you to, build that reputation, that clout per se. So I would say using those to my leverage and getting a meeting with the right person is the most important part. It might not be the person that is, making the final decision, but trying to get somewhere close to that. So, if I had a dream client and I wanted to get in there and I knew there was a bid, I would have to go, do some online digging on who these people are, figure out, okay, their, building might be managed by somebody I know.
Mm,
Okay, let me contact them saying, hey, I know so and so works for so and so. You guys lease the building out. Any way you can just get me in touch. And that works a lot of the time. They'll loop us into an email. The building management says, hey, I'll get these emails all the time. Hey, I'm not promising anything. I don't, know what they're doing with the furniture, but here's Nick Caswell. I've done, 15 projects with him. He's great. You guys take it from here. That is probably my best avenue of success right there.
that's awesome. That's a great strategy, man. Thank you for sharing that. Now, I'm just kind of curious about some of the things that you do for fun. Um, I know golfing is pretty big in the world of Orlando, but is that something that you care about?
Yeah, I'm a avid golfer. Love
Yeah,
golfing. One of my
that's cool.
probably my favorite hobby.
Yeah. Why
Yeah.
is that?
I I think it's like a natural transition from, I played a lot of baseball growing up, and once you stop playing baseball, you still have that competitive drive to do something. And I think the easiest transition for me was golf. Funny enough, one of my current clients is the guy who taught me golf when I was like 14 years old. So the golf pro at a local country club here is actually my client now. Again, just having that personal relationship. Um, that's really what helped me play golf, was the passion of baseball, knowing that I couldn't continue playing baseball. I wasn't, good enough to go to college and get a scholarship and go pro and all that. So I just leaned into golf naturally. I mean, again, the connection to my dad, who played golf his whole life, right? My grandparents played golf. That's actually why they relocated to Florida, was for golf purposes. So it's always been an integral part of my life.
That's awesome. What else? Do you find that like golfing is like a really good way to network? And if so, like, that's a whole nother conversation, which is how do you leverage the world of golf in order to become, because if you suck at golf, there's a very strong probability that like no one's talking to you.
Yeah, no, that's funny you say that, because that is, if you are good at golf, you will get a lot of business. A lot of business decisions are made on a golf
Really?
course. Oh yeah. And it's funny because a lot of the, top decision makers in any industry, right? That golf, they are at the top because they're so driven. So
Mm.
even when it comes down to something as simple as a golf tournament, they're going to want to win. So they're going to want to contact the best golfers they know. So if you're good on the golf course, you will get more business out of it. I promise you, there is a ton of business being made on the golf course. So I just happen to be lucky that I'm halfway decent at golf, and I have a job that requires me to meet people, right? That requires me to build relationships. So that just I'm just lucky in that aspect of it.
That's cool. That's awesome. What else do you like to do for fun? What about family life?
Family life, yeah. I mean, I have two dogs, so that's I love hanging out with my dogs. That's one of my favorite things. Me and my wife, we kind of do, just a couple things. You start off going to the grocery store, and then you end up somewhere trying coffee. And it's just that's just kind of how we go about things. So there's not like a a strict schedule per weekend of something that we have to do. Oh, we love doing X, Y, and Z per se. We just kind of float around, and where we end up, we end up. So it's just kind of a flexible, fun life.
Yeah, that's cool. What are the dogs? What type of dogs do you have? And like, do you go on walks and things like that with them all the time? Do you play in the backyard? What do you guys do?
Yeah, we do both that. So we have two dogs. We have an 11-year-old lab and a 8-year-old lab. And I actually, the 8-year-old sitting right next to me crying. So if she makes it on the podcast, I'll apologize. Um, yeah, no, like you said, just basic dog things. One of my favorite things, actually, tying, what me and my wife do for fun, and me and my dogs. Every weekend I take, them to go get coffee somewhere with me, and just, they love car rides. That's like one of their biggest things. So that's just, 30, 45 minutes of time with them in a car is awesome.
Yeah, no, that's awesome, man. Well, very cool, man. Well, thank you so much for your time, Nick. I really appreciate it, and thank you so much for being on the Believe in Your Office podcast.
Yes, thank you for having me. Great questions.
Your office isn't just where work happens, it's where culture is built, ideas are born, and teams come together. And if your workspace doesn't support the people in it, everything else becomes harder. That's where Boomerang and Common Sense Office Furniture comes in, supporting communities in Orlando, Florida, the tri-state area, and everywhere in between. Boomerang and Common Sense both specialize in high-quality office, hospitality, healthcare, and educational furniture that doesn't just look good, it performs. Whether you're furnishing a growing team, redesigning for hybrid work, or just need furniture that actually works for how people collaborate, Boomerang and Common Sense make it easy and affordable. Visit boomerangofficefurniture.com to see how the right furniture can transform the way your team works.